Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I am here today to do a Friday Reads where I wrap up the week in reading and talk about bookish things that have gone on during the week, maybe talk politics just a tiny bit. And here is the way I am going to structure this Friday Reads. If you'd like to skip to different portions of it, you may do so. I will put 2 timestamps in the description box down below. We're going to have a little chatty portion in the beginning, and that is going to involve politics. So if politics is a stress for you right now, or if you'd rather avoid, skip to either of the later sections of the video. I'm also going to talk about the National Book Award for fiction, which is going to be announced on November 20th, I believe. Yes, November 20th, which, let me pull up my calendar, is going to be Wednesday of next week. Now, the tricky thing is I get an easy pass on the Booker Prize and the Women's Prize because they are announced in the evening UK time, which is the afternoon my time. National Book Award is announced in the evening on the East Coast, and I'm on Mountain Time, so I don't get too much of a window, but I will try to release a video on Wednesday, November 20th, reacting. But anyway, so that will be the second part. I'll talk about the National Book Award and contenders. I have 2 of them right here. And then we'll do the Friday Reads. So you can use the timestamps to navigate to any part of the video that you would like to skip to, engage with as much as you want to engage with. Obviously, the big news that happened this week is that we got the winner of the Booker Prize. I did a reaction to it. I will link it down below. I have still continued to be bad at responding to comments. There's a lot of enthusiasm for Orbital, and I really don't want to take away from that because I can see why a lot of people like the book. I obviously didn't respond to it. I didn't finish it. But it's an interesting choice when you had James and Stoneyard Devotional there. I still feel that James would have been a much better winner. It will be interesting to see what ramifications, if any, that has for the National Book Award, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the National Book Award more specifically. But that is the big book thing that happened this week. I already had a whole video about it, and people have had really interesting comments. I've seen most of the comments, I believe, even if I haven't responded to them. And there's been a very interesting discussion. So if you want, just check out the video in the description box down below and follow along. And then I think now that we're going to be getting the National Book Award on Tuesday, the Giller Prize will also announce its winner on November 18th. I'm not going to do a reaction to that. It feels like this is a bit of a weird year for the Giller, and I've still been getting kind of all over the place reaction about whether or not people want reaction videos to the Giller Prize. So, you know, maybe next year. We'll see. But I'm not going to do a specific reaction to that. But once the National Book Award is announced, we're kind of done with book awards for at least major book awards for the remainder of 2024. But there's still a lot of excitement ahead because best of year lists are going to start to come out. I checked, and over the last few years, around the time of Thanksgiving in the United States, the Washington Post Book World usually announces its best books of the year. I'm kind of mad at the Washington Post right now for reasons you probably know about. The New York Times Book Review releases its 100 Notable, and then usually at the end of November releases its 10 best books of the year. And I am kind of mad at the New York Times right now as well. I feel like the book review is good, and it has me holding on to my New York Times subscription, but it's become very challenging. Oh, well, we don't have to get into that. But those are coming, those are exciting, and I'm looking forward to doing reaction videos to those. I do reactions to them every year, and I can't wait. If you want to revisit last year's videos for the 100 Notable from the New York Times Book Review, their top 10, and the Washington Post Book World's 10 best books, I'll link those down below because it's kind of fun to look back sometimes and see what was new then and what has become familiar at this point. So that's the book world. Still a lot of exciting stuff to come, even though book prize season is going to be going into hibernation until spring. Let's talk about politics for just a second. I don't really want to get too far into it. I had said in my last Friday Reads that I was going to take a break from talking about politics, but I did want to loop back this week because I don't think I explained something very well in my distaste for talking about politics. And I got a lot of comments about it that sort of misunderstood my intention And that's not on anybody who misunderstood. That's on me. I didn't explain very well. So in that, I mentioned that I didn't feel like talking about politics for a while and was probably going to be taking a break. And the main reason for that was mental and emotional stuff. Just, it hurts. I don't want to talk about it right now. But I did throw out, and anecdotally, this is not, I tried to emphasize that this is not the reason, because it's not the reason I wouldn't want to talk about politics. But I had been losing subscribers every time I did talk about politics. And the thing that I did not do a good job explaining in that video, like, people kind of assumed that is the reason that I didn't want to talk about politics, and that I'm going to be and the comments were, I'm censoring myself. What I did not do a good job explaining in my last Friday Reads video is that a lot of the comments said if they unsubscribed because of your politics, you probably don't really, they're not the type of people that you would really want to engage with anyway. That is probably true. I agree with that. But what I didn't explain very well is that the fact that talking about politics just meant that people were quietly dropping off the channel in large numbers fed into a frustration that I had in 2016 after that election, and which has really come back now. I have not really been on Facebook since 2016. I've occasionally, especially during the pandemic, I would open Facebook because a lot of times restaurants and businesses would change their hours or how they were doing contactless purchases and all of that stuff. So a lot of that information was found on their Facebook page. So I still have a Facebook page. I just don't use it unless I'm checking something like that. And the reason I dropped off of Facebook almost immediately after the election was that in the lead up to the 2016 election, I had a lot of conversations with people about why Donald Trump was dangerous. And they just didn't want to listen. It started to feel, even before the election happened, it was like talking to a wall. And after it happened in 2016, it felt devastating because it was like all the reason and logic is here, and people did not want to listen to it. It didn't matter. It didn't matter trying to engage, trying to talk. It didn't matter. It didn't make any difference, ultimately. And that was really frustrating. And I dropped off of Facebook completely. Now I really only do Instagram and Threads and YouTube for social media purposes. And that came back this year. Like, all of the evidence that Donald Trump is a bad president is out there. We already had one term. It was disastrous. He tanked the economy. He really mishandled the pandemic and the way it was handled. It got so bad because he handled it so badly. And all of the indications are that what he wants to do a second time in office are worse. They just are. I'm going to be a little angry talking about politics this time. Mostly, I'm still numb about the results of the election. But I think I'm feeling right now a little angry. So just warning, I'm frustrated about this topic. Like, that is what I meant when I said that people just quietly dropped off anytime I talked about politics. People don't want to listen. They don't care. And that is incredibly, incredibly frustrating. All of the evidence that the next 4 years or beyond, possibly, because we don't know what he's going to do. We don't really know what we should be afraid of. All of the evidence is there. Like, one of the things that's making me really mad right now is that, like, he has put up RFK Jr. to be in charge of Health and Human Services. He would be in charge of the CDC. And we knew that. We knew that that was there because RFK Jr. was saying before the election that that is exactly the job that he wanted in a Trump administration. This is a guy who does not believe in vaccines. This is a guy who doesn't believe in fluoride in water and rejects all of the evidence against those beliefs that he has. So now we're all in a position where you should really make sure your vaccines are up to date before January, because it could be bad. And if fluoride leaves water, like I don't know. You just don't know what this is going to look like. But again, All of the evidence was there for anybody who wanted to listen. People didn't want to listen. And that's what is so frustrating. Rather than engage, listen, or try to learn, people would rather just quietly unsubscribe, nope out, and continue doing damaging things to this country. And that hurts. It makes me feel a little bit hopeless because it's just like 2016. People don't want to listen to reason. They don't want to listen to the dangers. They don't trust people when they talk about it. I remember in 2016, as a gay man, I was worried about a Trump presidency, and people would constantly say to me, to my face and on Facebook, they would say, Donald Trump has lived in New York his whole life. There's no way he is opposed to gay people. And it's like, okay, I'm sorry. Living in New York does not make you an ally. It absolutely does not. And even if he is, look at who he is surrounding himself with. Mike Pence is pretty openly anti-gay, and that's who he chose as vice president. And people didn't want to hear it. They just didn't want to hear it. And me saying, I fear for what could happen to my community in a next Trump presidency didn't matter. You know, part of Project 2025 challenges marriage equality. That impacts me, and people don't want to listen. And that's another frustration that came from 2016 because... And after marriage equality happened, when marriage equality happened, I was working for a radio station. Let me tell you a quick story. I was working for a radio station, and one of these stations in our community was a conservative news station. And when I got in the morning, it was the day after marriage equality. So I was like on a high. I was feeling good. You know, Joel and I had been officially married in the state of New York at that time, but our marriage was not legally recognized in many other states, including Montana, where we moved after we got married. And so I was on a high, and then I came in and I heard both of the hosts of the morning show talking about how this is a disgrace. The Supreme Court should not be making decisions about marriage equality. This is going to ruin the country. You know, it shouldn't be something that is legal. So I had to, because my office was 2 doors down from their studio. So I could hear everything that they were saying. And I had to leave the building. I went and I got coffee. I walked around the block several times, and I went back inside, went into the office manager's office and sat down and vented. She was very supportive. And I waited until their show ended, and I walked into their studio and I said, listen, I heard what you were saying about the marriage equality decision. And you could see both of them like immediately sort of tense up, like, what's he going to say? And they're getting ready to be defensive. And I said, I just want you to know, when you say these things, you're talking about me. And you're talking about my right to be married to Joel. And one of the guys immediately started to sput, oh, no, we're not talking about you. I said, no, you are talking about me. That's me. I am affected by that. And they said, no, you and Joel are great. And I told them, Joel and I don't get an exception. If marriage equality doesn't exist, people don't have to recognize my marriage. I am impacted by that directly. So you say you like me as a person, but you're on the air saying that I shouldn't have a right to be married. And they're like, no, that's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying. It was what they were saying. And they didn't want to listen to that. And it was incredibly frustrating. And it's incredibly frustrating to have to convince people that you should have rights and that your community should have rights. You know, Project 2025 is probably going to be much worse. And again, people always comment, not always, but last week there was a comment about Project 2025, and they said, oh, but Trump has distanced himself from that. He surrounds himself with the people who wrote Project 2025. J.D. Vance wrote the foreword to the book by the guy, you know? It's just like in 2016 when people would say, oh, no, Donald Trump is not anti-gay. It's like his vice president is explicitly anti-gay. So it's frustrating. So when I was talking about, I was trying not to be angry like I am right now last week. What I didn't adequately explain is that the loss of subscribers that came from talking politics feels like reopening the wounds from 2016. It feels like people want the option to not care. They want the option to not care about you and whether or not you have rights. And that does not feel good. It really doesn't. And a lot of people can relate to that in a lot of different ways. If you were a black voter, if you are a woman who is probably going to lose access to healthcare over the next 4 years, it's a lot. It's a lot to process that so many people don't want to care. And that's what I meant when I anecdotally brought up the loss of subscribers that came from it. Like, I don't necessarily care that those people left. If you don't want to believe in the politics that I'm saying, or if you don't believe in the politics that I'm talking about, that's fine. Do your thing. I disagree with you. I should have the right to be married. I should have a right not to be discriminated against in employment or housing and all of those things, and so should other people in my community. And if you don't want to listen to that, I can't make you. That's the frustration that I have about people just noping out of a conversation about politics, because clearly a lot of people didn't want to engage in conversation about the ramifications of what is going to happen now. And that's scary. It makes it difficult to live in a red state because, sometimes I get questions about why I ended up in Montana. Well, the Montana I moved to is not the Montana I live in now. When I moved to Montana, there was a Democratic governor. There was one Republican senator and one Democratic senator. And it has moved very far to the right. And although we have not had a problem here, it is kind of scary. And anyway, it's just hard. So let me get off my little angry soapbox for a moment. I spent almost 20 minutes talking about that. And just say that, for the people who are here, it does mean a lot that you listen. It does mean a lot that you care. And we're going to need support networks like that. And I deliberately decided to wear a t-shirt for a bookstore called Chapter 1 in Hamilton, Montana. Hamilton is a small town outside of Missoula, where I live. And it is, so Missoula and Bozeman are sort of blue centers in Montana because they're the college towns. So Missoula actually broke for Harris. They broke for the Democratic candidate for governor. They broke for the Democratic candidate for senator. But the rest of the state, well, Bozeman did the same thing, but the rest of the state just, So you can kind of tell yourself it's more important to be a voter here because maybe we can move the needle. But we've lived in Montana for 11 years and the numbers weren't even close. So you have to start to wonder, is the needle moving? Do people care? Anyway, Chapter 1. is a small store in a very red town. For Pride Month, someone was getting approval to paint a rainbow crosswalk, and people in the town of Hamilton fought so hard against that, saying you can't because there are rules in the town against sort of like graffiti laws, essentially. Like you cannot deface public property. But they had done a similar project for just like a Montana thing 2 blocks away. So even when the people trying to get the rainbow crosswalk pointed this out and said, but this already exists, and if you're going to bend the rule to allow that, then we should be allowed to do this. They got rid of the Montana mural on the crosswalk rather than allow a rainbow. Anyway, Chapter 1 is an incredibly inclusive store in this red town. They have a pride flag in their front window, prominently displayed. They have a "No Hate in Our State" sign. When you walk in, one of the first sections you see is about social justice and equality and things like that. And they continue to be people who are willing to push the needle in this small, very conservative town and speak up for the parts of their community who are being silenced by that conservative community. So we are going to need to support people like Chapter 1 in the years ahead, especially because book bans are probably going to get worse. And the situation with libraries like Idaho is a good template for what could go wrong. If you're not familiar, Google it. I don't have the energy to go into it right now. But Montana Book Company, an activist bookstore in a very conservative town, bigger town because it's the capital of Montana. But we need to support these places because we need spaces that will support us and our community. I was hoping this would be a quick discussion, and here I am, 20 minutes in. But that is the politics situation. I don't know, because I said I wasn't going to talk about politics last week for a while, and here I am talking about politics in the very next Friday Reads video. So who knows? I might take a break just because, again, it's disheartening, it's exhausting, it's difficult when people don't want to listen and tell you that your fears are unjustified when in the cabinet appointments that we have gotten so far, the fears are coming true. So it's hard. It's hard. Let's leave that behind. Talk about the National Book Award. So the National Book Award is going to be announced on, I believe it was Wednesday, November 20th. And the finalists, I'll have my video about the shortlist linked down below if you want more information about the shortlists. It's Ghost Roots by Pemi Aguda, Martyr by Kaveh Akbar, James by Percival Everett, All Fours by Miranda July, and My Friends by Hisham Matar. So go to the shortlist reaction if you want more information about each book. I do think Miranda July could easily appeal to the National Book Award Foundation, and there's a chance that they might stick up for My Friends since it kind of faded from the Booker. I still feel like Martyr and James are the two leading contenders for the National Book Award this year. And my reasoning in the shortlist was that it feels like it could easily go to James, but the National Book Foundation typically goes for books that play with the form and function of literature. And you could make a case that James is doing that because it takes an existing book and plays with the form and the function and the meaning of it. It subverts that book. However, Martyr is much more of the book that does that. It's more constantly described as creative, original, unlike anything else that you have read. So it feels like Martyr is more likely to be the book that the National Book Foundation would choose. There's room for an upset. That clearly happened with the Booker. I really thought it was coming down to either James or Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood, and it was neither in the end. So who knows? Maybe Miranda July or Hisham Matar will pull out a victory in the end. And maybe the fact that James did not win the Booker Prize means that the National Book Award Foundation will take a chance to plant a flag and say, we're going to be the first major book award to recognize James. That could happen now, because I think part of the difficulty was like, if James had won the Booker, people start to want to spread the wealth. Now they don't have to worry about that. So they could go with James. I'm still going to predict Martyr for the National Book Foundation. I just think it fits the mold of the things that they have liked to recognize recently, like the Justin Torres book from last year, and Blackouts. I couldn't remember the name of it. Like Interior Chinatown, which is a book that is written in the form of a screenplay. It feels like they really value books that sort of get out of the box of traditional literature. And James does do that, but Martyr does it harder. So Martyr does it harder. That rhymes. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. Anyway, so I feel like Martyr is still going to win, but it could easily be James, especially now that James did not win the Booker Prize. But there are dark horse contenders, and the only one that I would be really shocked to see win is Ghost Roots by Pemi Aguda. That feels like a situation where the honor is in being nominated in the first place. But we will find out. We will find out. On the topic of the Booker, before I go into the Friday reads, a bunch of people commented that they didn't think James was ever a real contender because it's too quintessentially American, being based on a Mark Twain story. But I don't see that, because The Sellout by Paul Beatty is about a Supreme Court case and civil rights. And it's a very American story, and it won a Booker. Lincoln in the Bardo, yes, it's a story about grief and all of that, but it's an American president is literally in the title. It's set during the Civil War. You could argue that that is also quintessentially American. So it's not like there's not a precedent for them recognizing something that is sort of quintessentially American. But, anyway. Let's go to the Friday Reads portion of the video, which is also going to be a little bleak compared to last week, or similar to last week, because I only finished one book this week. Reading has still been very difficult for me. I've basically stalled out completely. I did manage to read a book. I started an audio called Meet Cute Club by Jack Harbin because I figured I needed some cinnamon bun escapism. And by the way, I should mention, I filmed a video on Thursday. So I'm filming this on Friday. I filmed another video on Thursday with the intention to have it posted the day I'm filming this. And everything was so busy that I did not get a chance to edit it. So I'm going to edit this video that I'm filming right now to post on Saturday, and I'm going to edit that video to post on Sunday. So you'll be getting 2 videos from me this weekend. This Friday Reads video on Sunday, and then something about some cozy reads and escapist books on Sunday. So stay tuned for that. But that is exactly what I needed, something cinnamon bun and sweet to get me out of the numbness and the frustration and the anger that I have been feeling. And Meet Cute Club did the trick really well for that. It is about 2 men, Jack and... Is it Jack? Oh God, I've already forgotten his name. One of them is Rex, and let me just find out, because I can't believe I don't remember the name of the other guy already. But Rex has a part-time job working in a bookstore. Jordan is the other guy. Jordan is a huge romance fan, and he goes to this bookstore to pick up copies of a book for his romance book club, which is called the Meet Cute Club. We have a title. And the cashier is kind of rude and dismissive of men who read romance novels. And Jordan pushes back, and at the next meeting of the Meet Cute Club, Rex, who was the cashier, shows up at the club and says, you're right. I should be a little more open-minded. I want to give this a try. And of course, sparks begin to fly and there's chemistry. This is a very short book. The audio is like 4 hours. It is 238 pages, but yeah, it flew. At 1.2 speed, I think it even got down to like 3 hours. So I was done with this very easily. And it is about Jordan has been he'd fallen down the rabbit hole of the romance genre. He believes in romance. He wants romance. But he's kind of holding out for the sort of perfect situation. And I think because of the shortness of the book, it doesn't dive into that as much as I wanted it to. And it also kind of speeds up the way they form their relationship. Could have taken a little more time, could have taken a little more connections. And some of the things in the book, like the elements, are a little bit clunky, because you meet Rex when he's working as a cashier in the bookstore, and the bookstore, or his job at the bookstore, is not mentioned again until the end of the book because it just disappears. It's convenient as a plot device to get them to meet, and then it doesn't matter anymore. So it just fades out completely. So there are elements that are a little clunky. And if you're someone who's concerned about spice, there are 2 explicit sex scenes, and there are multiple references to other sex activities that happen off camera. So if you are concerned about that, there is that. And there's lots of like flirtation and focus on physicality in the physical body and musculature and all that. So that's your spice level update for it. I'd say it really met the moment in that it was everything that I needed in a book right now. It was cute, it was sweet, and I love that it is a romance about 2 black men coming together. That is, I'll hear more about this in the video that posts on Sunday. I love diversity in romance, and I'm starting to want and crave more of it. So this really scratched that itch in a good way. I would say, though, that a better version of this book does exist, minus the diversity, and that's The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. Because this, I didn't think I was going to like, and I've mentioned that many times. If you are someone who follows along with the channel, you have heard what I thought turned me off to The Charm Offensive, which is that it is set in the world of a Bachelor-esque TV show. the protagonists, one of them works for this TV show, and the other one is sort of convinced by the board of his company that it will boost the company's profile if he becomes the Bachelor. It's not The Bachelor, but essentially. So he goes on the show, and the guy who works for the show really believes in romance. He wants to believe that he is helping people find their one true love on this show, even though the anecdotal evidence that he sees every season is that the TV show is much more about manipulation and making it seem that, and it's interesting, the Charm Offensive plays with that concept and the almost toxic expectations that can come from being a full-throated romance enthusiast and what it can do to your expectations. And Meet Cute Club toys with that idea, but doesn't really get into it. Charm Offensive has a whole thing about it, and it's really interesting. And also the chemistry between the two guys is really cute and sweet. And it takes its time to really get into their connection. It's 354 pages. That extra 100 pages really, I think, makes a difference in terms of chemistry, connection, and all of that in the book. However, Meet Cute Club, very cute book, did everything I needed it to do, and for that I will never fault it. It's a good romance novel. There's better out there, but it definitely scratches the itch if that is something you are interested in. I made no progress at all with my physical book, which is Salamlik by Khaled Al-Ismail and translated by Larry Price. That always sounds like I'm saying Larry Price. It's Larry, Leri Price. And I really want to get back to this. Maybe this weekend I will pick it back up because I was really enjoying this book. I've just felt so stressed, numb, angry since the election that I haven't... this is a serious book, and I needed the escapism of Meet Cute Club this week. I'm hoping that this weekend I'm going to get back into this and finish it because I was really loving this book and I want to make progress on it. I want to finish it. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm only like halfway through. This weekend, I'm hoping that I will get further in it, and maybe when we have our next Friday Reads video, I will be able to tell you that I finished this book. That's my goal. And the other thing about me, I do love a cinnamon bun book. I love a romance. I need that kind of cozy vibe right now in the world. But I am someone who needs to balance. So I can't just do cinnamon. I need something a little serious, and I feel like I am ready for something a little more serious, to not as a distraction, but just I need some balance, and I think Salamlik would provide that. Which takes me to The Snow Child, which is the book that I had said I would do after finishing Salamlik, and I had offered that we could do a group read. A lot of people had started it, and my reading just fully stopped with Salamlik, so I haven't gotten to it. So here's my thinking. The Snow Child actually just showed up on Scribd. It won't be available until the 17th, which is Sunday, I think. So I'm going to do this on audio. I will make this my next audio. And now that I've finished Meet Cute Club, I just won't start another book until this is available on the 17th. And then I will do this on audio. Because that also will allow me to get to this book, since I said I would do it in November. I really wanted to spend time with the physical book, but I think the audio will be a good way to make it happen. I'll dive in and read it, and we can talk about it in my next Friday Reads. I don't know if I'll finish it by the time we speak next, but I've gotten some great feedback from people who have already read it and finished it. And so that's my plan. On the 17th, I will have access to the audio of this, and that is what I will pick up next on audio. That also frees me up a little bit because I have had one of those situations where a bunch of library holds become available at once. And once I finish Salamlik, if I'm doing The Snow Child on audio, I can turn to these. So from the library, I got a graphic YA, I believe, called Ready or Not. The sticker is covering the name of the author, Andy Peretta, and Flats by Matt H. Taylor. So this should read really quickly. So maybe when I finish Salamlik, I'll do this, since I could probably do it extremely quickly. And again, doing The Snow Child on audio will give me some leeway to do the audios. The books I got from the library, the print books I got from the library. The Most by Jessica Anthony finally showed up. I have had this book on hold since it was released in like June or July. and it has said pending. Sometimes that in transit or pending can just take forever to come through, and in this case it did. But it's finally here, and it's a short book. It is 133 pages. So I'm thinking, again, doing this No Child on audio allows me to meet that group read that I said I would do in November, but it also allows me to read these library books that I have in print. And then I don't know if this is going to fit my mood right now, but I also got You're Dead by Sam Sachs. The Most and You're Dead had been longlisted for the National Book Award for fiction and didn't make it onto the shortlist, but they sounded really interesting. And what I didn't realize from the image of the book online is that these eyes are cutouts in the dust jacket. So there are cutouts in the shape of the eye, and then the eye is on the book. And I wish, it's a library book, so I can't take off the dust jacket, but I really want to kind of see what it looks like underneath, and I can't. But this is the one that I would prioritize last, just because I don't know that it's going to fit my mood. But we'll see, because I do really want to read it. So that's a rant. A prediction for the National Book Award. I'd love to hear your prediction. It is what I've read this week, what I am planning to read in the coming week. We'll see how everything goes because, stress and all that. So stay tuned. You'll be getting a video from me tomorrow if you're watching this video the day that it posted about cozy reads that could help you escape the world if you need a little bit of time to do that, to rest and restore and get ready for whatever's coming. And then I'll be back on Wednesday for the National Book Award announcement. So hopefully on Wednesday. If I can't get something posted on Wednesday night, I will do it on Thursday. So stay tuned for all of that. I'd love to hear what you've been up to, what you've been reading, and all of that in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.